It's a great day to be alive. Now, you might be new to music production or sync licensing, and there are 5 worries that I think you might have, and I want to try to help you think about it in the grand scheme of things. You may not need to stress about these things that much. Number one, making your music with digital or analog gear. Now, if you're a veteran or you're just starting to the game, you might be like, should I buy some analog stuff to help me make music? Should I buy it all in the box to help me make music? If you're a veteran, you might be thinking, oh, you like the old analog sound and you don't know about the digital sound. But I'm telling you, in regards to sync licensing, this is probably one stress that you can just take away and not think about. Now, there are some differences to sound quality of analog versus digital gear. Not going to front on that. But in this day and age, the digital gear is so much better than it used to be. And I want you to think about your end product. So if you're making music for television, more than likely people are going to be listening on their TV, a laptop, or a phone. Now think about those speakers. They're already not high quality. That don't mean your music has to be low quality, but they're not the highest quality form of listening. So worrying about if someone can tell if you made this music on analog or digital gear, it really doesn't matter because they're not even there for your music. They're there to watch your show. Your music is just something in the background. So if you're just starting your journey or you're a veteran, don't get hung up on analog versus digital gear and making your sound when you're making music for sync licensing. Now, this isn't to say that you can't get the gear that you want to make. If you're making like high quality trailers and this stuff is going to be played on big sound systems, then of course you're going to want the best. But for most people that you're probably in the same boat like me, most of my placements get on reality shows and on TV. It really doesn't matter whether you have analog or digital gear, long as it sounds good with the final product. The second thing that you really don't have to worry that much about is using a lot of compression. Now, this can be lumped into plugins in general, but I know for someone beginning, let's say you type in a search of how to make music. Well, you're not just going to get how to make music. You're going to get other things like mixing, mastering, these things that you're not even ready for in this stage. But I'm going to tell you, you don't need to use that much compression as you think. I mean, when this stuff gets uploaded to the TV shows, radio stations, or streaming, it gets compressed down anyway. So you'll just be sending a more compressed signal into another compressed signal, which can make things sound worse. So to get over the stress about worrying about compression, because really compression in its base form is just leveling out volume gains, right? So I try to approach it in 2 different ways. Think about what is spiking up and down in your track that you're making. It may just be one little section that is spiking in volume. Well, if that's the case, what I usually do, I automate that volume drop and I just take the volume down and it helps a lot. So one thing, not adding extra plugins, and in this case compression, it saves on CPU resources because some of the higher end plugins, they can really hog your CPU. But if you just do a simple automation where, let's say in the hook, your track gets too loud, all you need to do is turn down the instrument, automate in volume, and there you go. Another way to do it is how I approach it too, is simply turning down the volume of the overall instrument. You have to make choices when you're making music. So we have a full spectrum of music and it goes 20 to 20, right? 20 to 20. You got your bass and you got your highs, 20 to 20. And you only can fit so much music in that space. So in order that something stands out, well, they're competing for different things. So the thing that might be too loud, and you might say, oh, I'm just going to compress it so it can be lower. Well, you might can just lower the volume and you can hear it just enough and it makes the other instruments stand out. That's often what I do, especially when I'm making tracks for like for drama, suspense, and tension. I can't even say the word tension type tracks. I just lower the volume Simple as that. It saves time. I don't have to reach for a plug-in, and it again saves CPU processing power. The number three thing you may be worrying about, especially if you're a beginner to sync licensing, is using EQs. Now, even veterans get into the trap of thinking they have to have every kind of different EQ and use EQs on every track. And I want you to think about this differently so you can stop stressing about it and reframe your mind about it. So let's say you have a track and you have a bass you just love, but then you have a synth part and some of it is muddying up the mix. So it's clashing with the synth, has a lot of bass in it too, so it's clashing with the bass. So the logical idea is just reach for EQ. You shave off some of that EQ in the synth, you wipe your hands and you're done. But I started reframing my mind and I thought, okay, if this synth is not working with the bass, what other instrument can I use to make it work with the bass? Maybe the synth, if the bass is more important in this song than the synth, then I don't need that bass. I don't need that synth. I can use a different type of synth. So I often would just find another synth. That way I don't have to use an EQ. Another trick I often do is if the basses are clashing, I would just raise the synth an octave higher. And sometimes that just changes the whole track and it makes it feel more open, therefore eliminating the need for EQ. I kind of EQ'd it in a sense myself because I went an octave higher. And when you go higher octaves, that's when bass drops out. So that's just something I want you to reframe your mind about, because I don't want you to just by habit just reach for EQ every time, because sometimes you honestly don't even need the EQ. If you start with great sounds and understand the whole spectrum, that every instrument needs to have a different place in that spectrum, then you'll be reaching for EQ a little bit less. Another thing, number 4, something you might be stressing out about, is picking the right drum sounds. Now, I've been making music for a long time, and I know before I got into sync licensing, I would search. No, this snare is not good enough. No, this clap is not good enough. And now it's even worse, in my opinion, because you got places like Splice and more people selling drum packs. So you got hundreds of different type of sounds you can go through. And I used to layer all my sounds until I got the right sound. Now, nothing is wrong with that approach. But I'm saying, so you have less stress and make music faster, start with higher quality drum sounds. Now, for me, I mostly use the Native Instruments expansion packs. They have some really good drum sounds. So I could just really load one kick, one snare, and that's it. And when you're making stuff for sync, time is money. So you don't want to be sitting there searching for different things, trying to make the best snare you can possibly make by layering it, different type of snares. Good enough is going to be good enough. You have to remember the end product is going to be heard on probably an old TV, some old headphones, or a phone, and it's not going to sound that great anyway. So they're not going to know if you use thick clap number 5 or you use the 808 soupy choppy kick, whatever you call it, right? So I'm just trying to help you build less stress so you can get to making music faster. And the last thing that you really shouldn't be worrying that much about when it comes to making music for sync licensing is trying to make a banger every time. Now, I know you want to make good music, and I'm not saying make terrible music, but your music does not have to be the most bangers that ever banged in music production, right? Most of the time when I'm making an album, and I always suggest make about 10 tracks for your album, I say I probably like 4 to 5 tracks that I think, okay, these are good for this album. And then it's always shocked me, the ones that I didn't really like get picked. And I can't really tell you why, but I think building the habit of not trying to make always the best bangers for sync licensing, especially if you're putting together a theme album, again, it goes back to point number 4. It just saves time. And you learn how to finish tracks. I think that's the most important thing, because you may get a music brief and you have like a 2-day deadline. Well, if you don't have much time, you want to try to submit as much possible music as you want. Now, you could spend those 2 days making one amazing track. Nothing is wrong with that approach. But I'm like, I want to get as many as possible. So if I have like 2 days, I'll probably try to get at least 5 tracks. One whole day will be making the tracks, let my ears breathe. The next day will be all the mixing and mastering. So that's just my approach. You can do it differently if you want to, but I think this method and the way of thinking helps you get finished tracks faster, because the tracks that sit on your hard drive are losing money. They could be making money. Not saying you're going to get anything placed, but you'd rather have more opportunities than no opportunities. Now, this is just a short list of what can be stressing you out, whether you're a veteran or you're new to the game of music production and sync licensing. So let me know in the comments, what are you worrying about? What are you stressing about with your music production? And I want to help you get over that hump.